If you ever heard Nelson speak, he says it's all about the way that you think. Stick around. Today, we're going to be talking about the human factors of infinite banking.
Enjoy the episode.
Take care.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast, where we teach clients how to build wealth and create passive income without the risk of Wall Street.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with your co-host, Anthony Faso. Today, we're talking about the human factors of infinite banking. And like we said before, if you've ever heard Nelson speak, he always talks about it all starts with the way that you think. And there's a reason that he starts with these 4 ideas and getting your mind right before he ever shows you any numbers. Would you agree with that, Anthony?
Totally agree.
Yep. So this is like the game plan, right? For those of you that are athletes, maybe you won't get this, but there was a game plan before you go and play the game, Anthony. You had to put a game plan in place to get everybody on the right page, and then you went out and executed. And that's what Nelson does with these 4 human factors. And so we're going to touch on these 2 today. And today we're talking about the arrival syndrome and Parkinson's Law. Anthony, what do you think? You want to get started here?
Let's do it.
All right, man. Kick us off. Tell us a little bit.
Start off with Parkinson's Law.
Okay.
And I don't know about you, but the most time I am efficient is the day before I'm going on vacation. Right. I am laser focused. I don't have time to dilly dally or to kind of teach you about life insurance or IBC. I got to get my work done because I have that deadline. Now, if you've ever experienced that, that's an example of Parkinson's Law, where he says work expands to time allowed. Meaning, if you give me 10 days to complete a task, I'm going to complete it in 10 days. Right? You give me 10 hours, I'm going to complete it in 10 hours. Right? And this all goes back from an essay by the economist Northcote Parkinson, when he did an essay for The Economist. Now, Parkinson was an economist, and also he had appreciation for naval history. And what he realized in his studies was that 2 departments of the English government, the Navy and the Colony Affairs, were both growing in size, even though the naval ships decreased and also the British colonies decreased. The point of what he found was that the bureaucracies will increase no matter even if what they are managing are decreasing. In fact, he even had an equation on it. Damn. Which just tells you how much detail he had. But also, so he was focused on the government growing in size, which I think we can all agree
scary
is continuing to grow.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I was going to say that's back a couple 100 years ago, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Same concerns today.
Yeah. Now, but so in addition, in that essay, he kind of pointed out some really good points. I mean, the first one is alluded to earlier, work expands time allowed. Can you relate to that, Cam?
Oh, yeah. Every day. I'm one of the best procrastinators. Yeah. Right. There's something needs to be done. You give me 10 days, 9.5 days into it, I'm going to get it started and finished right on time.
Yeah. I can attest to that. Yeah. I agree with you on that. Now, another thing he talked about was a luxury once enjoyed becomes a necessity. Now, this reminds me of a story when I was working for PricewaterhouseCoopers. This was in the early 90s. Okay. Now, back then, power windows were just kind of coming into play. Right?
Damn, you're old.
I know. But some people on here can relate.
Do you have color TV?
I had one, and I also had a black and white one too. But I remember pulling up to a friend of mine in the parking lot, and she had a cool Camaro. I mean, it was one of the 80s, so it wasn't that new, but it wasn't one of the cool ones in the 60s. But she had manual windows. So I pulled up to her and I give her the universal sign to roll down your window, which maybe you don't know that, Cameron, but it's kind of just like almost like, you know, what you might be able to relate it to is when you're working a Jack in the Box, you know, where you have to kind of turn that level. So I come up to her and I give her that universal sign to roll down her window. And to me, the funniest part was I was on the passenger side, so she had to lean all the way over, right, to manually roll down the window. And I'm like, "Hey, great job today. See you tomorrow." And then I just skidded off, right? And then I look in my rearview mirror and I can see her. Now she's got to lean back over all the way over and roll up that window. Fortunately, I couldn't hear the names that she was calling me, but that just kind of shows you the kind of friend that that I am. But I guarantee you, she will never have manual windows again. And once you get that power windows, you can never go back.
I agree, man. I agree. Well said.
Can you have an example of something like that?
I cannot.
Not as cool as
I cannot top that one. That was, you know, we've all got,
that was more being a bully.
We've all got stories.
Friend,
we've
right?
all got stories. Some of them are good and some of them are that. So, you know.
Okay. All right. Now this other one, I'm sure we can all relate to, is expenses rise to income.
Yeah.
Now, how many times have you were living fine and then financially, and then you got a raise?
Mm-hmm.
Then how many times fast forward a year later, and you really don't have anything to show for it?
Yeah.
What'll happen is our income rises. Well, cool. Now I can go out more. I can afford better hair products.
Yeah.
Right. Or maybe now I can afford a higher car payment or a more expensive house. And the problem is we're never really getting ahead when we do that. And I think this is a big problem in the United States. We're trying to keep up with the Joneses. We're always trying to, whenever we get more money, we're always spending it. We're buying liabilities.
I couldn't agree more. Well said. You got to be intentional, especially with those income increases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the Parkinson's Law. Cam, what are you going to share or drop today?
Yeah. Today, you guys are in luck. I'm talking about the arrival syndrome, right? In Nelson's book, he talks about this. And what he says is he calls this the most devastating matter that we've examined. And a quote from him, he says, this phenomenon probably limited the achievement of mankind more than anything else. When this thing infects us, we stop growing, we stop learning, we rot, we turn off or tune out the ability to receive inspiration because we already know all that there is to know. One of the biggest deterrents to learning in life is knowing it all. And I've got some experience with this, I would say, is right when I came across infinite banking and I started trying to build kind of my practice, is I would go out there and I would talk to strategic partners, estate planning attorneys, and even some accountants, Anthony. And I would tell you, it was my experience that accountants oftentimes had the arrival syndrome.
Yeah, totally agree.
Right. I took this new idea to them, presented it to them, and there was a lot of times where they just dismissed it immediately. They were not open-minded. They didn't look at it and say, hey, this is interesting. Maybe I can learn a little bit more. And so, right, that was probably one of the most frustrating pieces to it. But you also see that just in any area of life as well. And another kind of practical application that I've seen just somebody knowing it all is I can't tell you the number of times that I've had somebody that's been really, really good in like one area of life, right? Whether it's business or something, but if you get them outside of that area, their expertise is not quite all there, right? So if you have that mentality of being good in one area of life, it doesn't always translate to many different areas. And so that is the case. That's something you want to be aware of. So, you know, that's an example of the arrival syndrome in everyday life. So the way in which we overcome the arrival syndrome, right, is it all starts with the way that we think. And this is why Nelson has this early on in his book, is our world is changing so quickly, right? You look at tech, you look at AI, you look at biology, and all these areas that are just changing rapidly. Is we had better keep our minds open and approach some of these subjects with curiosity and especially in ways in which people are creating wealth, is the best thing that you can do in wealth creation is go find somebody that's been successful and approach it with a curious mindset and say, what the heck are these guys doing that's different than other people? And one of the things that you're going to find is they're going to have a mentor, right? They're going to be plugged into a mastermind group. They're going to be surrounded by people that are thinking differently and thinking much, much bigger than themselves. And so if you guys need examples of that, one example that I could give you would be Peter Diamandis. If you guys don't know who Peter Diamandis is, do yourself a favor and go look this guy up. He is a Harvard-educated physician, and he wasn't a physician for very long. Once he graduated, he actually went out there and started researching and helping develop areas of biology and tech and how these two areas were merging. And he's got a podcast that he kind of highlights some of those opportunities or some of the areas of interest in there. It's called Moonshots and Mindset. Awesome, awesome stuff. If you guys have a minute, go subscribe to that. Listen to a few episodes, but he will blow your mind on what he's doing to bring those two kind of industries together. Really, really good stuff. The other one I was going to quote was Ed Deming, right? Nelson Nash references Ed Deming in his book when he's talking about he is the grandfather of product quality, right? And so I looked him up, and on Wikipedia, what it said was that he was the father of the third wave of the Industrial Revolution. But one of the quotes that was under his biography that stuck out to me was this. It said, Ed Deming believed in a world where there's joy in learning and joy in work, where everyone will win. To me, that sounds like an abundant mindset.
Yeah.
Before, right, it was categorized as an abundant mindset. The only way to overcome the arrival syndrome is by changing the way that you think. You've got to think and approach things as a student. You always want to be learning and kind of striving for growth. Nelson, at the end of this chapter, he actually wraps it up with a prayer, and it's a pretty long prayer. And I think he has it there for a reason. This is really, really difficult to do, having that mindset of wanting to grow, wanting to learn. And I think that he ends it in a prayer because we could use all the help that we can get.
Well done, Cam.
Thanks, man. Awesome. Well, great. And you guys need all the help that you can get, as long as Anthony. Hope you guys found some value in this one. Again, this is all about the way that you think. And next episode, we've got 2 more human factors that we're going to be discussing. So stick around.
Make it a fantastic day.
Take care.
Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next episode. Also, check out our website, infinitewealthconsultants.com, to find our podcast along with other additional resources.